I am going to share the biggest mistakes I made while raising over $13 million of funds for my business. And I want to share the exact things I wish I did differently so you can avoid these mistakes. Hey, my name is Arjun Mahadevan. I'm the founder and CEO of Doula.com. Doula.com is the ultimate business in a box, an all-in-one platform to start and scale your business from anywhere in the world. And we're a venture-backed tech startup based in New York City that's raised over $13 million of venture capital from some of the world's best investors, including Y Combinator, Nexus Venture Partners, HubSpot Ventures, and notable angel investors like Cody Sanchez, Graham Stephan, Sahil Bloom, Dharmesh Shah, and more. I promise you by the end of this video, I'm gonna share 6 actionable tips. Well, they're actually mistakes I made while raising over $13 million. Now, you might be thinking, why am I qualified to do this? Well, I have raised 13 million. So I'm not gonna tell you how to raise 50 or how to raise 100, but I feel qualified to talk about how to raise $13 million. Doula is a venture-backed company. We raised funds after going through Y Combinator. I even raised $1 million from a 2-minute pitch from HubSpot Ventures. I wrote a book called The $1 Million Pitch. You can check that out as well. But my goal today is to share 6 actionable tips, and I'm gonna run through them one by one. Again, I'm sharing these so you can avoid them. Let's dive in. The first tip is, it's actually a rule. It's the rule of 60. And you've probably seen people on Twitter who talk about, hey, I raised funds in 3 days off one tweet, or my fundraise took 24 hours and we were oversubscribed. Those happen, but they're an exception, not the norm. The truth is, most fundraisers are an absolute grind. And I'll often talk to people who say, hey, I can't raise funds for my business. And then I'll ask them, okay, how many conversations have you had or how many people have you reached out to? And they'll say 10 or 20 people. That's outreaches. That's not even conversations. Here's the truth, and I learned this from a mentor. The rule of 60 is that it can take 60 conversations on average, that's an actual conversation, to get one check. So just doing the math, to get 60 conversations, let's assume you get a 33% email to conversation rate, which is really good. That means you need to have 180 outbounds. So you need to get 180 contacts. So ultimately, the rule of 60 was a huge wake up to me because it showed you can't say you haven't had success unless you've put in the reps to even qualify to say you haven't had success. So with that mindset, I realized, hey, I have to up the amount of conversations I'm having with the right quality, of course. You don't want to spray and pray. But that reflipped my mindset on, hey, exception to the norm to raise funds in 1 day or 24 hours off a viral tweet, most fundraisers take time. And the rule of 60 told me, hey, if I want to get to one check, let me have 60 quality convos, or at least understand it's going to be a grind. And here's the other thing too. All you need is a market of one, meaning all you need is one investor. Once you get the one investor, you've now validated, hey, the pitch is actually working. And typically, after you get one investor, it's easier to get the next investors. So that's the first thing. It's the rule of 60. Remember, it can be an absolute grind. The exception is you can do it off a viral tweet or something, but typically it will be a grind. Remember the rule of 60. The next tip is to raise in tranches. And I learned this from a mentor as well. You could say, hey, I want to raise this much money at this valuation and go out to the entire market and say that. But let's say you're trying to raise $100,000. A more strategic approach could actually be, hey, split it into tranches and actually increase the valuation as you go. So let's say your goal is, for example, to raise $1 million at a $10 million valuation. What you could do is break it into tranches and say, hey, for the first tranche, I'm actually only raising $100,000 and I'm doing it at an $8 million valuation. And when you go out to folks, what you've now done is, one, you've created some urgency saying, hey, I'm closing this first tranche at 100,000. That's all that's open. It's closing soon. I mean, you don't want to create fake urgency if there actually is an urgency, but you're now telling people, hey, this tranche is only open for this limited time. And once it's full, the valuation is going to go up. Now, this does 2 things. One, it actually creates urgency, which is the hardest thing to do, is to get people moving. But the second thing is you can then qualify and validate, hey, is there appetite in investing? If you fill the tranche, amazing. You know what you can do? You can raise the next 100,000 at 10 million. And maybe if there's way more demand than you thought, you can continue to raise the valuation. So I like this approach because it allows you to manufacture or create urgency, which is so key to keep the process moving. But also it allows you to validate, is the pitch working? Am I pitching? Is there appetite in investing? So that's the second tip. Try raising in tranches versus trying to raise your target amount at the target valuation. Tip number 3, systems are greater than goals. Create an investor CRM. This is something I did not do from day 0, and I wish I did. I had notes in my note-taking app about investors I chatted with. I had snoozed emails. I had notes that I put in Notion. Instead, what I wish I did, and it's what I do now, is set up HubSpot, have a pipeline view for investor conversation, coffee chat cycle, not a fit, passed, said yes. And anytime I'd have a conversation with an investor, just track it in the CRM. The beauty of this is automatically when you have an email with them, the notes will be saved there. If you have notes from after the conversation, you can add it a note as well. And ultimately, my favorite line, this is from James Clear, is you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Every Olympian wants to win gold, but not everyone does. It comes down to your systems, your training. Every startup wants to raise capital. So why doesn't everyone? Well, it comes down to your systems, right? The rule of 60, it comes down to, are you having the conversations and are you tracking investors through a process? It's like a sales process. So at the end of the day, I wish I did this earlier. Create a CRM. HubSpot, I think, is perfect for this. I was going to say use a Google Sheet. That's better than doing nothing. But in this day and age, you can find a free CRM. I personally use HubSpot. And you don't have to overthink it. You can have very simple stages, right? One stage can be idea. The other could be conversation started. The other could be potential angel or potential corp dev or not a fit. If they're not a fit, you can keep them there too. So again, use a CRM. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Tip number 4, the 55-38-7 rule. This stat was wild. It completely blew my mind when I learned it. When it comes to human communication, 55% of communication is body language. 38% is tone of voice. 7% is the actual content or words spoken. So if you're doing the math, 93% of human communication is non-verbal. It's before you've even said a word, which implies or means oftentimes the battle is won before the war is even fought. In this case here, if you're doing a pitch or talking to an investor before you've even said a single word, the tone of your voice and your body language is 93% of the battle. So the point here is when you're on a call, especially if it's a Zoom call, you have to demonstrate your passion or your energy. And I think there's some easy hacks to do this. Stand up on your calls. If you have a standing desk or make one versus sitting, that automatically gives you energy. It's kind of like putting makeup on your calls. That's the best analogy I heard for it. But the point here is when I was doing the pitch at HubSpot, I knew the second I got on stage, if I stood with confidence, my body language was strong, and I presented with power and authority and confidence, doesn't matter what I was saying. People would gravitate to it and I would have more confidence going into the pitch. So whether you're pitching on Zoom or pitching in real time, remember 55-38-7, 55% body language, 38% tone, 7% is what you're actually saying. So that obviously matters. You can't say BS or bogus or make up things, but remember, body language and tone is 93% of the battle. Tip number 5 is fill the cup. This is something which I learned way too late, and it's going to sound obvious when I say it, but I actually think this is one of those unteachable truths, which is people say it and it's obvious, but you only learn the hard way. Someone is more likely to invest in you if they know you and you have a relationship versus just investing in you without knowing you at all and getting some random email out of the blue, right? You want to invest in someone you know. You want to invest in someone that you've seen make progress. So by filling the cup, what I try to do now is, even if I have zero clue if an investor is going to be a good fit, I want to chat with investors. Why? Because they're smart. They've seen other businesses. And even if there isn't a good fit, I've added an incredibly smart person to the network, and I can ask them candidly, hey, what do you think are the biggest risks we're going to face? What do you think about our go-to-market? When I do investor conversations now, I always ask them, tell me what you think the biggest bottlenecks will be for us. Oftentimes they've seen other companies and I learn a ton on those calls. It's also a great way for me in these coffee chat type convos to let them know who I am and check in quarterly, and they can see the progress. They might follow me on LinkedIn. They see the progress, and then when the time comes for a formal fundraise, you have the relationship. You've been adding water to this cup and it's overflowing or it's full versus going in with this empty cup. So building relationships takes time. We all want to just send the email and have the magical investment happen, but you can never start early enough and you can keep it very simple. The very cool thing is anyone working on a business or starting something, people want to help. They want to be associated with and help the up and coming startup or company. So you'll actually be quite amazed how many people will, from a cold outbound email, be willing to chat, especially investors. Again, that's their job to find and talk to companies. And lastly, tip number 6, this I think is the most important one. Believe the no, but ignore the why. So I'll say that one more time. Believe the no, but ignore the why. Here's the thing. And I actually talked to an investor who said this, which flipped my perspective on this. Saying no is hard, especially for an investor, because look, it's their job to say no. They don't make investments in every company, but they're saying no to a person who's putting everything on the line. They probably, or at some point, quit their job, they're all in, and you're telling them no, thinking that it's not worthy of an investment. That's got to be crushing, and it is really hard as a founder to get heard no for someone not wanting to invest in your business. But an investor told me, hey, it's hard for me too. And look, like it's easy to think they're just robots, but they're not. They're humans too. So what I found is that investors will actually give a wide range of reasons as to why they are not investing. Timing, oftentimes you might get ghosted. There could be reasons, really a wide variety of reasons. People are sick, not the right timing, season, market competition, conflict, etc. At the end of the day though, you have to believe the no, they're saying no, but ignore the why. And ignore the why with a grain of salt, meaning there could be some truth in what they're saying, but ultimately remember, you as a founder determine whether or not your company succeeds, not investors. And the best example I have of this is the idea that we got into Y Combinator with didn't work. We pivoted, and we pivoted into doula. So YC actually picked the wrong idea. Y Combinator doesn't just pick winners all of a sudden. If only it was easy as if you get into YC or an accelerator, raise money, your business works. But that's not how it works. The market decides, the product decides, the user decides if you're solving a problem for them. So again, believe the no, ignore the why. That's a wrap. Again, the 6 things that I want you to walk away with are 1, the rule of 60, using tranches during your fundraise, systems are greater than goals, use a CRM, the 55-38-7 rule when it comes to human communication, fill the cup, build relationships, and ultimately believe the no, but ignore the why. Thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll be releasing more content just like this, where I'll be giving you an unfiltered behind the scenes look of what my life is like building and scaling doula here in New York City, including the challenges the team faces on a daily basis, how we acquire customers, how we've raised funding, my favorite growth hacks, my morning routine, and more. So please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be putting out content on the regular. And speaking of entrepreneurs, if you yourself are a founder looking to either start a new business or scale an existing business, doula is your business in a box solution. We've helped over 10,000 entrepreneurs from over 175 countries focus on what they do best, so doula can handle the rest, the unsexy yet critical back office required for any business. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.